and welcome to the And Then Write podcast. I'm your host, Stacey Walsh, and this is episode 14, Finding Your Why. Thank you for joining me again. Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that today is the registration deadline for the Maine Writing Retreat, happening this October in beautiful Lincolnville, Maine. We still have a few spots available, and hope you will gift yourself this time and space away to nurture your own writing and connect with other writers. If you'd like more info about the retreat, please visit andthenwrite.com. Okay, moving on to today's episode. How do we as writers find our why? And is this even a necessary practice when it comes to our writing? So, I will say, as an editor and writing coach, one of the things I watch my clients wrestle with over and over is staying the course. I think we can all relate to this, writer or not. It goes something like this. Get an idea for a project. Think about the project with great enthusiasm. Maybe even start telling a few people about said project, and then find yourself getting increasingly excited to start the project. There's that honeymoon period of falling in love with the idea of your project, doing research if necessary, daydream about how great it's going to be when it's complete. Beginnings are so wonderful, aren't they? And many times so easy. It's easy to fall in love. But then it's time to do the damn thing already. Maybe you start off strong. You know what you want to do, what this thing looks like. You just need to get it out of your system. It feels good to start. You're doing it. Until you're not. Things begin to fall away. You begin to doubt yourself. You question your ability to write a book. You wonder if anyone's ever going to read it anyways. You get stuck somewhere, somehow, with no idea how to continue. I can relate to this. It's happened to me more than once, and it will happen to me again. Because the work of writing isn't glamorous, it's freaking hard and lonely, and many days feels thankless. Most of us go into a project not only unsure about whether we'll complete it or not, but also not knowing if it will ever see the light of day in a periodical, in book form, or on the screen, etc. There's no guarantee after doing all of that hard work that anything tangible will come of it. So what's the point, right? The point is, you felt compelled to start something in the first place. You had a reason for beginning. For most of us, it's the seed of an idea, an urge to tell a particular story, a pull to share a story from our life. And this is a good beginning, but more often than not, it's not enough to sustain a project. Those early inklings don't necessarily result in a fully fleshed out project. If you spend much time in the personal development space, especially as it relates to being an entrepreneur, you're bound to run up against the concept of knowing your why. Simon Sinek gave an excellent TED Talk in 2009, one that's been viewed over 44 million times, entitled, How Great Leaders Inspire Action. And at the center of the golden circle, as he calls it, is the question, why? The two rings beyond why are how and what. I'll link to the talk on the website if you want to check it out, by the way. Sinek points out that very few businesses or organizations know why they do what they do. And he's not talking about making a profit. He stresses that making a profit is a result, an only result. By why, he means, what's your purpose, your cause, your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why should anyone care? He points out that it's obvious most of us go from the outside of the golden circle in. We know what we do and how we do it. But why? When we can flip the order and operate from the inside out, when we can start with our why, well, that's how great leaders and organizations are born. And I'd add to that, great writers. He goes on to talk about the biology behind this, including the makeup of the brain, which resembles the golden circle. It's all fascinating stuff, and I won't rehash it all here, but suffice it to say that when we operate from the center, our why, Well, it's where behavior originates. It's the gut center. It has less to do with language and rationalization and everything to do with feelings. Think about this from a writing standpoint for a second. I've read books that are beautifully written. Seriously, the prose is so fluid, the author clearly a master of their craft. And yet, the work didn't make me feel anything. I wasn't moved. I wasn't changed. I wasn't challenged. I've read other books that are less polished. Perhaps the writer hasn't quite gotten a grip on all facets of writing, or the work would be strengthened by some editing. And yet, I can forgive all of that when the story moves me, affects me on a deep level, or teaches me something. I feel the same way about film, too. As someone who worked in the industry for over a decade, I admire beautiful cinematography, excellent editing, detailed art design. But none of that matters if the story isn't strong, if the message doesn't captivate your audience in some way. In fact, when I find myself admiring any of these extraneous qualities in a film, I'll inwardly groan and acknowledge that, damn it, the story isn't strong. And this always bums me out, in both book and film form. Someone, or lots of someones, spent a lot of time and effort, and in film, probably millions of dollars, to conceive of and complete the project. What a huge bummer when it falls flat. Sinek stresses that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Think about that. From a business standpoint, this makes sense, and Sinek's talk has been quite revelatory for many, but this also makes sense from a writing standpoint. Knowing your why helps to maintain focus. Do you really want to spend the next 6 months or longer slogging away on your screenplay if you don't even know why this project is important to you? Writing for its own enjoyment is fine. I do it all the time, but it's not enough to power us through on the dark days. Whenever I get bogged down in a project, and honestly, it's best not to wait until then, but whatever, it's what we do sometimes, I try to find my way back to my why. Why did I even want to write this in the first place? Why is it so important to me? So, for example, the memoir I'm working on about my mom. Initially, my why circled around helping others in grief, caught in the throes of a horrific situation. However, after spending a bit more time with the project, my why became perfectly clear. I'm trying to know my mom better. And maybe in sharing the process of doing that, I'll be able to make an impact on someone going through a similar situation. One of my ongoing whys with writing is always to help others feel less alone. There are no wrong answers here. When I talk to other writers I know about this, I got a variety of responses, like, I want to connect with others. I want others who have experienced something similar to feel less alone. I want this story to be adapted into a screenplay and made into a film. I want to help educate others about this topic or issue. I want to make money and land an agent. I want to entertain. I want to tell a story that hasn't been told before. All of these can be part of our valid reasons why. They can be the touchstones we return to, mantras to motivate us forward when our energies begin to flag. But I'd encourage you to go a step beyond this. Dig deep into your beliefs. What are you going to get out of writing this particular project? How is birthing this book, screenplay, chapbook, etc. going to help you? Is it the sense of accomplishment you'll feel when you're finally done and can hold the book in your hands? The confidence you'll gain by developing a project of this magnitude? The development of your writing and/or editing skills? Your ability to see a project through to completion? Maybe it's the accumulation of knowledge around a topic you care passionately about. Often, we look outward for the validation we crave. If we can only get the work out there, then we'll know we've done something worthwhile. And it's true that getting feedback, connecting with readers, getting a response of any kind really, is affirming and thrilling and at times extremely validating. But it's still putting the power to complete in others' hands, not our own. Sinek acknowledges that being in pursuit of the result and the riches often won't get you what you want. He uses the Wright brothers and Samuel Pierpont Langley as an example. On paper, the Wright brothers seemed the unlikeliest candidates to achieve flight. And yet, they believed if they could construct a working flying machine, they could help change the world for the better. They had a cause, a belief people could get behind. They had loyalty, which is what Sinek argues is crucial to having business success. Langley had the money, the resources, the greatest minds on his team. But he was seeking riches and fame. He was seeking results. And where did it get him? Sinek shared that when Langley got word that the Wright brothers completed their first successful flight, his first reaction wasn't to say congrats, nor to say, hey, let's work to improve upon this success. No. Instead, he quit. He wasn't first, so he wanted nothing of it. His why wasn't sufficient to sustain his pursuit. None of this is to say that we shouldn't be seeking some results with our writing. We all have goals that go beyond the scope of the actual writing process. To get published, representation, a book deal, more. Again, none of this is negative. However, if that is the only why we can come up with when it comes to finishing a project, staying the course, maintaining any kind of stamina for our work, well, we may find that's not enough. Those particular kinds of whys don't necessarily get us in the gut. Late in his talk, Sinek mentions Martin Luther King Jr. and his amazing feat of getting 250,000 people to show up on the Mall in Washington on a hot August day, before the advent of the internet or an easy way to invite the masses to an event. Sinek points out that Dr. King wasn't the only great orator of his time. Despite that, he had a gift, and I love how Sinek phrased this. He didn't tell people what needed to change in America. He went around and told people what he believed. Dr. King hit a nerve because he found the people who believed what he believed. Sinek closes his talk with these two statements. And though they're not directed at writers specifically, they provide a lot of food for thought as we work to define the whys in our own work. We follow those who lead, not because we have to, but because we want to. We follow those who lead, not for them, but for ourselves. I'd say more than half the work of writing is showing up. Remembering why we are doing this in the first place can keep us in the seat a little longer, a little more firmly. It can provide us with a focus, a clear intention. Our why will show up in our work and connect us to the people who believe what we believe, connect us to the people who need to read our work the most. So now it's your turn. I would love to hear your thoughts on your why. How do you find it? Articulate it. How much does it change from project to project? What patterns have you noticed, if any? If you're comfortable sharing your thoughts with the group, head on over to the Facebook group, and then write podcast and request an ad. This is where we'll be discussing these and other topics. If you'd rather message me directly, feel free to email me at andthenwrite@gmail.com. To listen to previous podcast episodes, find the resources mentioned in this episode, or to sign up for my newsletter, please visit andthenwrite.com. Thank you for listening today. I hope you'll join me again in a few weeks for episode 15.